Welcome to Avant-Garde Entrepreneur. I am so glad you're here today with me, my friend. Today, we are talking about how storytelling and effective communication can transform our personal and professional lives. Our guest today is Robert Kennedy III, an entrepreneur and coach who specializes in making complex ideas accessible and entertaining through storytelling and practical advice. Robert is the founder and CEO of Kinetic Kommunications, a leading communication and presentation training firm. Through keynotes and workshop programs, coaching, consulting, and emceeing, Robert works with leaders who need to deliver critical messages with confidence. He is here today to share his wisdom and a good bit of fun with us. Robert, thank you for being here.
Hey, Trisha, listen, I'm so glad to be here. But first of all, as speakers, we like to make an entrance to the stage, right? And so I want you to do this again really quickly. Just say,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, introducing Robert Kennedy III.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Robert Kennedy III. Oh my gosh, that's so much fun.
I don't know if this is video or not, but I'm bringing my people.
Yeah. Oh, how fun.
Hold on,
I
one more
knew
guy,
this-
one more guy.
Okay, I got another. Oh, nice.
Hey, I'm so doggone glad to be with you.
Oh,
How you
man,
doing today, Trisha?
Oh, fantastic. I knew this was going to be fun, but I didn't know we were going to start off like that. Get it
Yeah, we
right.
bring the party. We bring the party to the situation.
So, Robert, start off, we have a global audience. And one of the things that's so interesting for people, I think, is to understand what life is like for people, especially Americans, because their idea of what American life is like is what they see on TV or on video or on the internet now. And that's not hardly ever how it really is. So let's start by telling the audience a little about your early life. Where did you grow up and what was your early career like?
Wow, my early life. I am an outside of the USer. I was born on the island of Jamaica, and I was
Oh,
there until I was about 8 years old, and then I moved to New York City. Well, actually, I moved to New York. I was there for about a month and a half, and then we moved to Montreal, Canada. My dad was doing his a degree at McGill University in Montreal, and so we were there while he was doing that, and then we came back to New York, and that's where I grew up in the Bronx. So that's a little bit, the short version of some of the early stages of my life. Out of college, I was in the mental health field for about 3 years, and that prepared me really good for my next job as a seventh grade teacher. But there we go.
wow.
And so I lasted 1 year in seventh grade, and then I spent the next 7 as a high school science teacher. And then from there, I started a couple of businesses while I was teaching, but after teaching, did some real estate and was a real estate agent for a little bit, and then started an e-learning course development company. And while I was doing that, started to speak a little bit. People kept asking me about speaking, so I pursued this career or finding out a little bit more about what it was, what these people were talking about, how to get paid doing it, how to develop a business doing that. So that's where we are. I am a speaker, facilitator, moderator, MC. I run a company called Kinetic Kommunications.
I love the name kinetic. Did you name it that because of the word kinetic and the sensory?
Absolutely. So it's a little bit of a play on my name, Kennedy. So
Mhm.
instead of kinetic, Kinetic, it's Kennetik. So kinetic as in Kennedy, but as a science teacher, as a former physics teacher, kinetic energy is the energy of motion. And you've got kinetic energy and potential energy. And so motion, we want people to move. We want people to move forward. We want people to be transformed. And that also leans on how I appear when I come on stage, when I'm in presence. I want to be energetic, enthusiastic, never boring, never monotone. That's the core of all of this.
Well, I cannot imagine being in a room with you. I've seen some of your videos, and
Mhm.
obviously, maybe our little intro here. But I cannot imagine the excitement and the fun that you bring to a room. You must make events absolutely memorable and like nothing anyone has ever seen. They're truly a
Well, listen,
kinetic
I like to
experience.
have fun.
Yeah.
I love to have fun. And
Yeah.
so,
So our audience, most of them, as you know, are entrepreneurs. A lot of them, they have a lot at stake, as all entrepreneurs do. And they have not only the beneficiaries that are part of the programs where they're training that they need to bring them along and they need to be able to share stories and engage them, but they also
mhm,
have a lot of other stakeholder groups. They have investors, donors, they also have the political parties, formal and informal, in their communities that they often have to I don't want to say pitch to, but they've got to bring on board.
yeah.
So considering the vast amount of audiences they have and all that they have at stake, I'd love to talk a little bit about your storytelling and
Mhm.
methodology for storytelling, because this is a large part of what they do. They have the technical things, but then they have the stories, which are really what bring the technical things alive. What do you teach the effective elements of a story, the elements of an effective story?
So this is an age-old question. Stories essentially have been told for, gosh, thousands of years. And at its simplest level, we could say stories have a beginning, middle, and end, right? I was doing some work with another training company, and they broke it down that stories have four main pillars or four main elements: context, character, conflict, and conclusion. And that's really the lens, that's the journey that we take people on. I teach a framework where I say, listen, there are three areas that you've got to take people through in every story. That's the challenge, the catalyst, and the change. Everybody has a challenge. Everybody has something that is either broken, going wrong, a struggle, or there's an opportunity. So when we think about stories or we think about conflict, it's not always the negative stuff. Stuff might be great. If I think about this from a business perspective, you might be having the best doggone quarter of your life. You might be having the best year of your life. When you sit down and look at that, though, is there an opportunity for it to get better? Is there an opportunity for more sales to be had, more widgets to be made? That is a conflict. That in itself is a challenge. So we look at the challenge first, and then the catalyst is that moment where we say, oh, wait a minute. I realize that something different needs to happen, or there's something that is possible, right? That's that realization moment. And you realize what needs to happen. And then the change is actually the process. So if we think about this from a movie standpoint, there's crime, there's all sorts of stuff happening, there's chaos, there's confusion. That's the challenge. And then people say, holy smokes, we need a hero. We need somebody to change what is happening here. We need somebody to save us from all this confusion and uncertainty. And then once they recognize that, then the hero appears, and then the change begins to take place. So that's the arc of a story, and that's what I call the 3C framework for stories.
I really like your 3C framework because I know for me personally, when it comes to stories, there can be so much emotion and so much nuance around it. And
Mhm.
so it's challenging for me sometimes to think about how can I put this into a story format where I'm giving the right amount of detail, the right amount of context, but I'm not losing the audience.
Yeah. If you
That's
have a
something like it.
framework, it's easier to put things in shorter bites,
Mhm.
right? Because sometimes when you see somebody speaking and they're rambling and you're like, holy smokes, they took the scenic route. But if I come and I might say to you, hey Trisha, um, have you been experiencing a lot of hot weather lately? And you're like, yeah, oh my gosh. Well, what if we could make it so that you could be cool anytime you want? I just walk through challenge and catalyst immediately. And then I could say to you, well, I've got this thing that I wear around my neck, and it's got these two fans that when I think about it, the fans automatically turn on. And you would be cool anytime you want. And when you're fine, you just think about it and they turn off. Right? We've just walked through a quick story. That's actually a sales story, but that took less than 10 seconds.
That's powerful. That's a powerful concept. When you're speaking to audiences, obviously, sometimes you're speaking because you want to make a sale. Sometimes
Yeah.
you're speaking because you want to encourage an audience because you've been hired to do that, or because you're volunteering because you're really passionate about a group. How do you know when your story has landed? What are some of your signs with the group that your story
That
has
is
landed?
beautiful. I don't know that I've been on a podcast and been asked that question.
Mhm.
That is awesome. So there are a lot of different signs. Some of it happens during, some of it happens after. Sometimes it is that I see somebody's head turned to the side like this. And I know that I said something that either caused them to think, see something differently, share a new perspective that are like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about it that way before. And you see that. Sometimes you'll see them writing
Mhm.
feverishly, they're taking notes. Sometimes you'll see the light bulb go on, they're looking at you, and you kind of see, oh my gosh, the eyes open wide, and then their head goes down, and they may pick up their phone, right? So, and sometimes we get mad or we get a little bit bothered because we see people picking up their phone like, oh my gosh, I'm losing them. No, sometimes people are just, that's their note-taking device and they're getting something down and they're writing. Those are some of the signals. Sometimes I'm done and somebody will come up to me afterwards and they'll say, oh my gosh, Robert, I totally was hitting cruise control in my business. I was just going along day to day. And, I felt busy, but I did not realize that I wasn't being intentional about my day. And so I hear some of that after. And of course, as a speaker, I look to capture some of that. I ask them, hey, can you say that on camera?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of different ways. I think maybe what's inside of that, though, is the question that you may be asking inside of that is how does a speaker go on stage and feel in the middle of their talk like they're actually doing what they came to do and
Mm.
they're not boring the heck out of people.
Yeah, that's probably the subconscious question I was going for. Yeah.
Yeah, human beings are so interesting. Sometimes you cannot tell exactly what's going on in their brains. I mean, you could have 100 people in the audience and 100 different responses taking place. So I think the first thing that I would share from a speaker perspective is listen, number one, figure out how to connect with people. If you've done a good job of preparing to connect with people, then your speech is going to land.
Mhm.
If you just prepared and you said, you know what, let me see how much content I can put in here. Let me show them how smart I am. Let me show how much stuff I know. Let me show how wise I am. Let me show how to sell this thing. If that's what you did, then your likelihood of losing a lot of your audience increases.
Mhm.
But if you said, okay, where are they? Who are they? What's happening in their world? And how can I connect to that? How can I get them to tap into an experience that they've had previously, or maybe an experience that they can recognize that they don't want to have, or an experience that they can recognize that they do want to have? How can I do that? So let me share a cheat code with you. You ready? You ready for a cheat code?
Ready. Love cheat
Yeah.
codes.
So here's a cheat code. Anytime you start out a talk, anytime you start speaking to an audience, your goal is to get them inside their heads within the first 15 seconds. And one of the ways that you can do that really easily is by simply asking a question.
Mm.
See, there's this brain process called instinctive elaboration. And all that means is that anytime you ask a question, the mind cannot help but answer it. Right. And so if I ask a question, your brain is sorting through all its information decks. Back in the day, I would say sorting through the Rolodex, but I don't know. I don't think we use Rolodexes anymore. But if I ask you a question, I've got to make sure it's a good question. It's not just a yes or no question. Even a yes or no question, though, isn't the worst. If I say to you, have you ever experienced a cold winter? Your mind would sort through and say, yes, I have experienced a cold winter. Better question is, the last time a cold winter happened, what did it feel like for you? And so now you're like, okay, yep, found the winter. Okay, yep. Still sorting. Okay, where's the picture? What was I wearing? Oh my gosh, I was wearing a coat that had a fur around it, but the wind was really windy. And I remember walking outside and the snow gusts and everything was just blowing in my face. And I thought that I was wrapped up warmly enough, but all of a sudden I wasn't, because I could feel it, and my eyelids and everything just felt frozen. You've now caused them to reach back and grab the experience, grab the moment, grab the emotion of that time. And you've done that like that. You've caused them to jump into a story simply by a 3 to 4 second question that you've asked.
And it's a kinetic experience, which
Yep.
it ties it. This is full circle for me, understanding your style, because that's what you're doing, is you're making them feel it.
Yep.
And yeah, that's amazing. What are your tips for communicating with confidence to move people to action? I know we talked about, I asked you about, how do you know when your story is landed? But whenever someone goes into a presentation and they have a specific thing, let's say they want to get um, 5 of 7 community leaders to agree to have their program as part of a community development program.
Mhm.
Or I'll just stop with that as an example. What are your tips for someone to have confidence going before this group of people who might be older than they are, and moving them to action?
I want to attack the word confidence for
Okay.
just a moment,
Okay.
because when people ask the question, how do I have confidence? It appears like there's an on and off switch, right? You were in high school and there was somebody that just appeared confident. I remember when I was in high school, telling a story about myself, there was this kid who, this Italian guy, muscular, hair perfectly moosed and slicked back. And, he would come in with the rolled up sleeves. And so this kid walked in, and when he walked into a room, people paid attention, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh, he's confident. He's confident. And I thought that there was this switch. It was the way that you look. Confidence is repetition with the expectation of success,
Like that.
right? And
Yeah.
so if I think about my daughter several years ago, when I started to teach her how to drive,
Mhm.
when she first got into the car, she would think about, okay, my daddy said, place my hands at 10 and 2. Okay, let me do that. Then she would say, okay, yep, now I've got to fix my rear view mirrors. And now I've got to look in the back. I've got to check the backup camera. And then, okay, let me move the gear shift from P to R. Okay. And then I do that. Now I'm in the street. Let me tap the gas a little bit to see how far and how fast it's going to take me. And she's walking through all of these things. Some months later, my daughter, I don't have to drive her in the car anymore, because now she's got a license, and she hops in the car, zoop, 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 and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's a bat out of where, um, driving down the street. And I'm scared now, right? But what's happened is she has confidence, because she has repeated an action over and over and over again. So how do you get confidence? Well, you've got to find out ways of repeating an action over and over again. You're doing this right now. You've got how many episodes of the Avant-Garde podcast do you have?
You are number 74.
I love it.
Yes.
Right. So
Yep.
when you started your first episode, did you do a podcast before this?
This is my first podcast, and I
Love it.
started with video,
Yep.
and yeah, all
Love
the
it. So,
things.
so your very first podcast, the first time that you hit record or that you were preparing, you were probably like, "Oh my gosh,
I was a
oh,
wreck.
what, who is this person coming on? Are
Yeah.
they going to think I'm like inept? Are they going to think I have no idea what I'm doing? Am I going to ask good questions? Are they going to respond? Are there going to be awkward pauses in the conversation? Is what's happening? Right? You're thinking all of this now. 74 episodes in, you might have a few of those thoughts still, but you also have the experience behind you to know that, oh my gosh, for 73 episodes, for the most part, they went well. Yeah, it weren't perfect, but in the moments where it wasn't perfect, guess what? That was a learning moment. I now know something new from that, and I can build on it. Right. And so that is how we gain confidence. So turning back to your original question, entrepreneurs, people having to go in front of lobbyists, politicians, people in their area. Okay, how do you do that? What is your practice? Where are you practicing? I like to do something called practicing in public. And I do that by showing up on podcasts. I do that by doing my own live streams. I do that by creating videos and posting those to social media. What is the action and the activity that you're repeating daily, regularly, in order to increase your confidence, increase your repetitions, and thereby get better at that thing?
That makes complete sense. It is so true. Would you do it over and over again, or do it? I really appreciate what you said about practicing in public. So you're
Mhm.
not just practicing in your space or in your studio. You're putting yourself out there, because doing a
Yeah.
live stream is certainly putting yourself out there. Having, recording a video and not editing it and sending out is certainly putting yourself out there. So I can
Yeah.
see how that repetition, I think it's important for people to hear that someone like
Let
you,
me
you do. Yeah.
Yeah, let me add this. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Huh?
Let me add this. Practicing in public is important for one additional reason. When I was young, my mom used to wake me up to practice my piano at 5 a.m. in the morning. And, I practice my scales. Now, my mom used to say practice makes perfect. But as I grew up, I began to ask myself another question. What if I'm practicing the wrong thing? Right? I
Yep.
practice the wrong thing and I get better at that wrong thing over and over and over again. And I'm in my dungeon, I'm in my lab, I'm in my living room practicing it. Right? But when I get in public and I play it, there's somebody in that audience that is like, wait a minute, that wasn't correct. Or wait a minute, you could have done that differently, right? And so, not to say that that person is the be all end all or the final judge, but when you practice in public, there's some feedback that you get.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
when you get that feedback, now you begin to say, okay, let me see how I can incorporate that feedback, or maybe I need to do a little bit of research to find out, does that feedback align with the results that I ultimately want? Right. And so that is
Yeah.
why that practice in public is so key and important. Do it, people. Practice
Yeah.
in public.
Yeah, because the feedback, it's free feedback.
Hmm.
It's free education, because if you're
Yeah.
learning what's landing with your audience, you're going to know how to refine your message for whenever you're in that, those hot seat moments where it really, really matters. You talked a little bit about live streams and video. When we think about technology,
Hmm.
what are your, especially now that we have, it's funny, this is going to be an episode I look back on and make myself sound ancient. Now that we have AI is so prevalent, between AI and just technology in general, what are your tips for leveraging technology so that we can enhance our communication and our storytelling capabilities?
Wow. That is a huge, layered, nuanced question. The
Yeah.
simple answer is okay, if you want to get better at speaking, there are tools that you can use like Udly.ai, like ORAI, that will give you feedback on how you show up and how you speak. It'll talk about your filler words. It'll talk about your body language, your pacing. You'll get all of that information. Why I believe it's a nuanced question is because we're now at the stage where you've got Sora, you've got different permutations of Nano Banana. You've got all sorts of different video avatars that are now able to compute and clone and copy people. And so there are communication mechanisms that are changing. And I think the question now is, okay, how can you show up as authentic and real? Because the AI tools are trying to get it as close to perfect as possible. But maybe what makes you connective and real is not being so perfect. So when I used to count the ahs and the ums and the likes and the so's and you knows, back in the day, maybe now I need to start saying, wait a minute, my job isn't to be perfect from a grammatical perspective. My job is to connect. And how do I connect with my audience? Well, the answer is number one, become a better storyteller. Number two, find out how you can get into the world of your audience even more. And I'll repeat what I said before. One of the best ways to do that is asking questions, whether they're live in front of you or not. Even if somebody's listening to something on a replay, if you ask a question, like I said, you've hijacked their brain. Their mind cannot help but answer it. You won't hear the answer, but you've got their attention. You've got a part of their brain.
So, Robert, I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about you. A little bit more about you. So, you just got home from 6 weeks of being on the road, and you are an incredibly positive and high vibe person. But I know that you have your challenges just like everyone else does. What's your why, Robert? What keeps you going on the tough days?
Oh my gosh. I think the biggest why is being an example to my kids and my family. I've got 3 kids. I've got a daughter and 2 sons. One of the biggest things that I've wanted for them is to be positive contributors to society. And if I am somebody who always complains, if I'm somebody who gives up, if I'm somebody who takes the easy road, if I'm somebody who leans into just being comfortable, then that's their baseline. That's what they will know. That's what they will see. That's going to be their role model. And I don't want that. I want them to be leaders. I want them to contribute. I want them to say, wait a minute, the world didn't attack me personally because everyone is out to get me. I want them to be able to say, wait a minute, we just live in a world where it's human beings are imperfect. Stuff is going to happen. And how do I navigate that stuff happening and be better each day? So that's the legacy. That's what I want to leave with them. And so every day when I'm tempted to be like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like doing it today. I remember, okay, what if today was the last time that somebody had the opportunity to see you in action or operation? Would they see you quitting or would they see you going?
It's beautiful, Robert. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing from your heart. Wow. Before I ask my last question, how do people find you?
Yay. So you can find me simply by going to robertkennedy3.me. That's the easiest place to find all of my programs, all of my social, etc. But if you're on social and you want to find me, I'm Robert Kennedy 3 on all social media. Well, except for TikTok. I mean, some dude took Robert Kennedy 3 on TikTok and he wasn't even active. I was so upset.
Man.
So on TikTok, I'm real Robert Kennedy 3. How about that? Boom, in your face.
So what is next on the horizon for you? What are you most excited about?
Wow. I'm excited about building out our company even more. We've got some big plans for 26. We're at a point where we're ready to scale a bit, bring some trainers on board and be known as the number one organization for communication in the real estate industry.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, you already are. This has been an amazing time, Robert. Everything that you share is so tangible, so practical, so real. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it is simple.
Right.
And when we can start with simple, we are in a lot better place to tackle our challenges and overcome our fears.
I love it. Thank you.